Hello and welcome to Level 2 in my Energy System series. This video is going to just be a quick intro to the topics that we're going to talk about and that I'm going to be diving deeper into in videos to come. I gave sort of a welcome video already, but it's very long. I didn't intend it to go that long, but it became a lecture type of video, and I know not everyone can sit through videos like that. And I really want this information in this course or series or whatever I'm calling it to be as accessible to everyone, no matter what your attention span is or your time capacity is. And so here in this sort of intro video, I just want to quickly break down the 3 layers that I'm going to dive into in these deeper videos about what makes up sort of our unit of consciousness, the boss that I've sort of talked about in level 1. We have this concept that we're working with here that is very new and difficult to explain. It's simplistic in its functioning, in the templates. They make a lot of sense, and they're very easy to understand when you do. But you have to take, you have to take time with it, and you have to understand that each of these concepts grows. So, and along with growing is the vocabulary and the communication issues, defining what we're talking about, being on the same page with the concepts and terms and phrases being discussed and used. And so if you haven't seen level 1 talks and 101 videos and things like that, I highly suggest checking those out after this little intro video to give you some background information and catch up at where we're at. Links in below definitely are in the descriptions or in the comments. The 3 things that I'm going to set forth in this quick video here are sort of like our makeup, what makes up our reality bubble, conscious bubble. Sometimes I call it a sacred reflective boundary. I really like that terminology right now for what I have to grasp at, to really define it, to make it visual, and to be kind of like this is what we're talking about. It's the sort of reality bubble that is you. You're nobody else, and we operate from this first person view, and that's what we mean by the boss, and I talked about that a bit in level 1 stuff. And we have a boss, just like you're your boss. And for level 2, what we're going to start with foundationally, and the most important place, of course, to always start is inside, the systems within, what makes up each one of us, and we'll look at the models and templates of the 3 layers of what makes us up: mind, body, and spirit. And we'll dive into each one of those very deeply. Before we get into the mind, body, and spirit, differences between the 3, what each one looks like, let's talk about the 3 of them combined into the whole, which is you. This is the easiest way that I see sort of getting the first reality bubble, getting what I'm talking about with this sort of all-encompassing experience that takes up all 3 of those mind, body, and spirit complexes. They all have input that goes into this 3 functionings of our toroidal around us, this sort of magnetic core within us, and then the energy flow and exchanges that make us up, that the doings happen with. What happens when the torus and the magnetic core are running and working? What kind of work do they do? How do they operate? That sort of polarity or charge that's gathered and that makes you you. It's your vibrant frequency thumbprint, sort of. That is the 3rd part, the flow, the motion, the collection. All 3 of those layers work all different ways through all 3 mind, body, and spirit layers of you. So as you can tell, this is a lot here, just to start with, the basic of it, because the exploration is endless. And the meaning of all of it's very personal, very individual, tailor fit to you, specifically in your little unique makeup. All the working in the template is the same, but the results and the impressions and the experience of it will be unique to you. A quick, great example that I love to give and that I will start off with here so people can understand what exploration of manyness really means and what it means to be creator consciousness here, that we are. And I talked a small bit about that in level 1, about the bosses create managers underneath them, and those managers are able to create more distinct operations under their control that are smaller than the managers, more defined and more intricate, and their little workers underneath them. And then even those workers could divide their tasks into smaller tasks and hand it off to 3 people, and now we have 3 people under the workers, under the managers, under the boss, right? This is, this is what I'm talking about exploration and division into manyness. The sort of mathematic way, in case that, the visual of it doesn't make sense to you, the mathematic great way to look at it is we are counting from 1, 2 to 3, right? When we understand 1, and then 2, and then 3, say when we're really small, right? A really small child sees 1 thing, and then 2 things, it can count up 2, and then 3 cars, and it knows it has 3 cars. And we know, and then they learn not just one car, and then these 2, and then it's 2, and 3, and 3, but then they learn the concept of, oh, I'm adding 1 to 1, and that's really giving me 2. And then I'm adding 1 more, and that's giving me 3. And if I added 1 more, I'd get 4, right? They'll get that concept of counting and what's actually happening there. Not just counting the amount that's in front of you, but counting the change that's happening, right? As you get older, you could say to them, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4. And then they'll understand what's happening there. Halfway to and they get to explore what that even means, and then adding in a half, and then understanding a half and a half as a whole, and understanding odd and even. And then when they get the workings of that, then you could say, oh, but let's actually teach you that half is 1.5, and we have 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, then 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, then we have 2. And then there's infinite working and exchanges and potentialities to explore just between that level of scope, that perspective. And that could be like going from the boss to the managers. And then you could take it down to the managers and say, oh, but if we added a 0 and we put 1.01, do you see the grasping? Numbers are endless. It's infinite. It's always changing. It's always more. It always has fluidity in it. And that's how communication and exploration within us and within the manyness within us happens and can happen. That's what potentiality is. And when we understand that as conscious creators, the main boss of our whole main frame here, we get to add that 0 if we want, or we don't have to. We can know, oh, we could add 100 zeros if we wanted to. Do we want to do all that work, though? Do we have to explore that far into counting from 1 to 2? Or do we already get the lesson of 1 to 2 to 3, and are we ready to move on to algebra or geometry or something else, We have the conscious free will, the power to do that. And when you harness your reins and you own that power and you know it, then you're cooking with oil. Then you're getting things going. You can gain momentum. You can actually move forward. You're not stagnating your energy. And that's the main purpose, really, of this kind of time and place of third density here on Earth. But that's a conversation for another time, and I don't want to get carried away. Let's get into these 3 things that I'm really talking about that we're going to explore first. Because I feel this is the makeup, this is the main template of sort of consciousness when we determine it to be so. When we create a sacred boundary around something and we say that is unique, this is me as a human, and that is them, that is her, that's him, whoever, separate. Yeah, humans all look the same in our anatomy, but there's little tweaks, little differences, right? Alterations that make us unique. Excuse me. This energetic makeup that I'm going to talk about, this all-encompassing 3, is the same thing as sort of the anatomy, this of looking at a skeleton. We all have the same, but things get piled onto it, other systems, and it gets to be different, unique. So the 3 things that make up sort of this reality bubble energy thing that I will get better vocab words for, or if you're out there and you've heard others talk about this and they have great words for it already, please leave a comment, send me an email. I would love to be able to listen and hear others who are talking about this, because I haven't seen it really out there but with anybody, except for more like esoteric kind of things. But yeah. Anyways, this thing is made up of 3 workings altogether. And we have the torus, which I talked about in the welcome video. Actually, I think I sort of talked about all of this in the welcome video, but I like I said, it's a ramble. So if you didn't watch it, or you watched half of it, I don't blame you. We have the torus energy, which is the outward external energy of this body, this all-encompassing consciousness. And that's sort of like the sacred divine masculine energies. And that is the service orientation of how you interact with the external and what your intentions and desires are and your wants and needs of working with external things. And that looks like the donut shape. And the inner magnetic core that we have is the second part. And that is represented by the hourglass kind of internal shape with, the empty air shape made up of the contrast of the donut, right? We have the hourglass figure in the middle with the vortex. And that has to do with our internal processes, how we do our light and shadow work, how we balance our energy inside of ourselves, our light and shadow inside of ourselves. And that has to do with things like the chakras and meridians, and how we move through energy and problems and dis-ease and uncomfortability and things like that. That has its own layer of working, and its own boss, sort of, just like the torrido has its own boss, sort of. And the torus and the magnetic core for us and for this energy body is sort of the light and the dark, or the yin, the yang, the 2 opposing things that are pushing and pulling against each other. Oh, I forgot to say the inner core is like the divine feminine. And it's more of an inward pulling kind of sensation, and then the outward is the outward pushing. We have the push and pull that creates this sort of boundary, electromagnetic boundary. And outwards is electric and inwards is magnetic. I think I forgot to say it was more of an electric, torrido's electricity, more or less, don't have better words to define it, but we'll get there. Now, the third thing that happens within the structure is the workings between these 2, how they interact, what is the flow. And the flow in itself is this sort of infinity sign, figure 8, Mobius. I probably am absolutely ruining how you pronounce that word, but it's this ever-passing, recycling, pass-through. And how it works, its flow, its direction, its consistency, and momentum are all what kind of make up that. And it's interdependent on the working of the 2, of the push and the pull. It's a result of it. They're all results of each other, and this is what we have to grasp and understand about positive organic systems of communication and manyness, because they don't operate in a hierarchy placed from top to bottom vertically. It works on a horizontal shape to where we are all on an equal leveling, and intercommunication is possible between all because we're on the same level. We have different perspectives of what we're within here, and that's more represented when we see a triangle on the floor, which we could all stand in. We all have a different view. Say you were standing back to back with people inside of a triangle. you're all on the same floor, but you have a different view of where you're standing at and where you can see and what you can interact with directly, but not indirectly, because you could talk and you can share vibrations and everything is interacting. But grasping this communion space, and understanding they're all interdependent of each other and they all influence and work together. None more importantly or none more frequently than the other. It's an ebb and flow, a give and a take that has this seeking of harmonious balance, of homeostasis within it. That's its infinite intelligence purpose. When you get down into the microscopic levels, into your cells, into the workings, I mean, their sole purpose is those processes. So yeah, understanding that all three of these work as a partnership together and they're interdependent is crucial. And like I said, we'll get into each one of these. I'm going to do in-depth video on the Taurus, positive versus negative service, which I got a little bit into in that welcome video, but I'll do a quick video where we'll talk about that. And then I'll do a quick video where we can talk about the internal workings and the magnetic core and whether it is the organic functioning way that it should be, or whether it's been inverted and flipped on its head. And that the magnetic core's the initial start up. It defines intention and service. And if your internal core is inverted and you're creating the first lie, the initial distortion, you're bending your light by not accepting it and understanding the gift of oneness, that we come from a before, from a creator altogether, and we are all of one. That's the inner truth, that's the inner knowing, and that's what keeps your magnetic core held upright, that knowing and that promise and that truth, the anchoring of that. If you don't like that, if you choose to not believe it, if you want to hide from it, or if you want to try to exploit it for personal gain, I mean, it's a free will universe, so you can. It will invert that magnetic core, and that, it inverts the entire picture. And I have a great infographic, which I will share, which shows the original template, the organic, free-flowing, upright version of these three parts that I've discussed: the torus, the core, and the Mobius round. And then if you take it and literally flip it on its head, you see the negative orientation and how it works. And it works. It's not saying that by doing that the function isn't going to work. It's just you're going to get different results. And it's because, you're not anchoring to truth, you're not identifying and connecting to oneness, and seeking your highest good. So yes, I'm going to leave it there. I'm under 20 minutes, so if any of this is really interesting to you and you missed that lecture welcome video or you didn't have time for it, I do dive a little bit deeper into these things, so you could definitely check that out in the meantime before I come out with these next couple videos of these 3 segments. And once we cover this sort of reality bubble, all 3 of them, and we understand the different ways we could use the tools, what positive use and what negative use looks like, and the kind of communication each one offers. I like to call it it's alignment orientation. If we can see what paths are offered for each of them, then we can look at how they divide down into the mind, the body, and the spirit, each one of those. But for now, for this video, just like I said, let's learn 1, 2, 3. Let's look at 1, let's take some time looking at 2, and take some time looking at 3. I did make a meditation already, sort of an energy work guided practice to learning and sensing the toroidal. So I will leave a link to that as well. It's on my YouTube channel. I think it's like 45-minute meditation, which you can certainly do lying down before bed, or not. You can sit up and do it if you have time during the day, if you have the capacity to sit for 45 minutes. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope I could get some feedback and reactions from people. Send me emails. My email's always in the description, or you can leave a comment if you want. But yeah, looking forward to hearing more and looking forward to exploring down into this such a deep topics that they really are. So yeah, I'll catch you around next time.